got a vehicle over here that fled from me the other day.
Get out of the car.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Welcome to episode 11 of the Force Review. I'll be your host for the next few minutes. I'm an active patrol officer with 13 years of experience. I've been to just about every type of radio call out there, from stray dogs to carjackings. Let's get to it. This video is pretty short, so we're going to play it all the way through and then break it down.
Hey, can you start me one more? I got a vehicle over here that fled from me the other day. He's in the parking lot.
Yeah, 4. Get somebody else over there. 1330, go into the way over there with 3161. It's going to be off of 11 to the 100 blank over to the McDonald's. And 3161, you want him running code?
10-4. License plate.
Get out of the car.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Earlier, you gotta make sure a return on it right now.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Okay, here we go. October 2nd, 2022, San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio police officer James Brennand responds to a McDonald's for a disturbance call. While there, he notices a red BMW in the parking lot. Brennand had tried to pull over the car the previous day because the license plate on the car was registered to a different vehicle.
Fled from me the other day. He's in the parking lot.
Yeah, 4. Get somebody else over there. 1330, go into the way over there with 3161. It's going to be off of 11 to the 100 blank over to the McDonald's. And 3161, you want him running code?
10-4. License plate.
Having the wrong license plate on a vehicle is a violation of Texas Transportation Code 504.944, a misdemeanor. This gives Officer Brennand reasonable suspicion to detain all the occupants of the vehicle. Having the wrong license plate on a vehicle is also an indicator of a stolen vehicle, so Officer Brennand has the authority to detain the occupants for that as well. Since the vehicle may be stolen and the driver fled from Officer Brennand the previous day, the best tactic to use for this situation is a high-risk vehicle stop. This involves calling for several more officers, pulling in behind the suspect vehicle, and ordering the occupants out at gunpoint, one at a time. But Officer Brennand doesn't choose this tactic. Instead, he just walks up and opens the door. Why? Officer Brennand has less than a year on the job. Rookie officers like him are often hesitant to make a big deal out of things. Coordinating a high-risk vehicle stop would require him to take charge of several officers, probably all of whom have more time on than him. If he makes a mistake, or if his observation turns out to be a big nothing, he would likely face harsh criticism from his colleagues. In the police world, this criticism can be brutal. Officer Brennand's tactical decision may have been poor, but it was not illegal. He still has the authority to detain the occupants of that vehicle, and the driver, Erik Cantu, has the legal obligation to obey Officer Brennand's command to get out of the car. But another question arises. Did Mr. Cantu know he was being contacted by a police officer? Officer Brennand didn't identify himself as such. However, as it pertains to this shooting, the question is not what's in Mr. Cantu's mind, but rather what's in Officer Brennand's. So the real question is if Officer Brennand could have reasonably believed Mr. Cantu knew he was a cop. And since the parking lot was well lit, Officer Brennand was in full uniform, and Mr. Cantu got a good look at him, the answer is yes. Officer Brennand could have reasonably believed that Mr. Cantu knew he was a police officer. Also, Mr. Cantu's immediate reaction to drive away is consistent with his decision to flee police the previous day.
Get out of the car.
So Mr. Cantu backs up and the door strikes Officer Brennand. Mr. Cantu has just committed assault on a police officer, a felony. Mr. Cantu was originally charged with aggravated assault, but aggravated assault requires either serious bodily injury or the use of a deadly weapon. Mr. Cantu hit Officer Brennand at slow speed with the vehicle door. This action did not result in serious bodily injury, nor was it likely to result in serious bodily injury. Therefore, Mr. Cantu's use of force was simple assault rather than aggravated assault.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Okay, so Officer Brennand gets clear of the door, Mr. Cantu backs up, and Officer Brennand fires 5 shots at Mr. Cantu. Could he have believed he was in imminent danger? There are 2 possibilities of danger here. Perhaps Officer Brennand believed Mr. Cantu was either reaching for a gun or was going to use his vehicle to run him over. It is sometimes reasonable for an officer to fire on a suspect who reaches for their waistband, even if they don't have a gun. But those scenarios require some prior evidence that the suspect does have a gun. Maybe the suspect mentioned a gun or used a gun earlier in the incident. For 2 good examples of when an officer could have reasonably believed an unarmed suspect had a gun, check out episodes 2 and 5. Mr. Cantu provided no such evidence to Officer Brennand, so Officer Brennand could not jump to the conclusion that Mr. Cantu was reaching for a gun. So we're left with only the second possibility, that Officer Brennand believed he was going to be run over. The fact that Mr. Cantu had just assaulted Officer Brennand with his car does provide some evidence that he intended to do it again. However, Mr. Cantu didn't appear to have the ability to run over Officer Brennand. His car was angled in such a way that would make striking Officer Brennand unlikely. Mr. Cantu's lack of ability to run over Officer Brennand makes imminent danger non-existent. Then Officer Brennand fires 5 more shots as Mr. Cantu drives away. The only possible justification for these shots would be the fleeing felon rule. However, that scenario requires a violent fleeing felon that poses a significant public safety risk. Although Mr. Cantu had just committed a felony, this crime does not pose enough of a public safety risk to justify using deadly force. On December 1st, Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez announced indictments against former Officer Brennand for aggravated assault and attempted murder. Here's a similar incident for you.
Oh my god.
Long Beach School Safety Officer Eddie Gonzalez was charged with murder for this shooting. He is still awaiting trial. And in 2018, former Balk Springs officer Roy Oliver was convicted of murder for shooting at a vehicle driving away from him. In light of the video evidence, the Force Review concurs with the Bexar County District Attorney in charging Mr. Brennand. We predict that he will be convicted. That's it for episode 11 of the Force Review. We will see you on the next one.